One, so. We all read it. Okay, so then copy the budget and copy of the.
And I would just ask folks in the audience if we could please keep any idle chatter amongst ourselves quiet. The room has a lot of feedback, so we want to make sure the 25 folks on Zoom can also hear the presentation. I'm ready.
Good evening. Thank you all for being here tonight. We also have a packed house on Zoom, so thank you all for being a part of our school budget presentation now. I'm just going to go ahead and introduce a few people first before we get started. My name is Elaine Pinka, and I'm the school board chair.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but can Aileen speak into the mic the way Tyler was?
We have separate mics, Bronwyn, as part of the issue with all of the tech to get the room pulled off. So let's see if we can get the microphone turned up, maybe.
Or have her stand closer to it.
Can't pull that off, Bronwyn, because we're plugged into a wall to get all the stuff hooked up. So we're trying. Hang tight. Could we move the meeting in closer, or like she could be closer to the viewer? All right, we're gonna try this. No. Yeah.
Still good?
We're gonna need you to just speak kind of, I'm gonna angle this toward you, Elaine.
Can you hear us now? I can't get much closer.
We're working on it.
Okay, I can hear.
Okay, folks can hear, so just outside voices inside. And thank you everyone for your patience.
Let's start again. Elaine, thank you all for being here tonight. I think we've got our Zoom link figured out. One thing that would be really helpful for me is just if those on Zoom can stay muted. It's really difficult to focus when I got feedback. I got people talking there. So if everyone on Zoom can stay muted, that is super helpful. I'm going to start off just by introducing a few people. My name is Elaine Pinko. I'm the school board chair here in Georgetown, and we've got a few people up here up front that I just want to introduce. Caitlin Miller is our principal. She's going to give you a wave, and she's going to come up at the end and share a few things about school. And then we've got Willa Abel, who is another board member here. Our third board member is Jen Dobransky. She is on the line there. And then my last person here is Julie Hansberry. Julie is the special services director for all of AOS 98. So I just want to talk briefly about how tonight's going to work. I'm going to go through this presentation and I'm going to ask that you hold your questions till the end. So grab a pencil, take some notes if you have things. I just find that most of your questions I'm going to answer as I go through this. So in an interest of time and of being able to get through all their information, I'll get through what I need to say, and then you guys can ask all the questions, and I've got some support here who can help answer if I don't know the answers. Okay, you can go ahead. So this just shares a little bit about the mission and vision of our school here in Georgetown. The acronym that we use is COAST, which stands for Community, Opportunity, Achievement, Students, and Togetherness. And again, I'm not going to read through everything because I feel confident in your ability to read through it if you need to, but I will hit some highlights. For anyone who has this budget presentation on paper in front of you, it's a little confusing how it reads. So we go slide 1, slide 2, slide 3, slide 4. Not real intuitive, but that's the way the printer. And hopefully I've got numbers to follow up. Okay, let's move on to enrollment. Okay, so as we're looking at enrollment, at the top here, you'll see this talks about all Georgetown students. So for this FY 25 is the current year that we're in right now, there are 108 Georgetown students. So that includes students here at Georgetown School, as well as our secondary students in middle school and high school. And then next year, we anticipate that we'll have 101 students. And then on top of that, then we have our Georgetown School members below. Georgetown School currently serves 50 students in grades pre-K to 6. And then next year anticipates having 58 students in pre-K to 6. If you look at our next page, this kind of shows the breakdown of enrollment. You'll notice that from this year to next year, we're graduating 1 6th grader from Georgetown School and bringing in 8 pre-K students. So that will bring our enrollment up 7 for next year here in Georgetown. One thing I always like to talk about when we look at this enrollment is there were several years ago, Mr. Barrow was still a principal here, and we started projecting what our numbers were going to look like for school. And we, we're looking a few years out at and we were projecting we could be down at this point as low as 30 to 35. And that has never happened. We may have hit 1 or 2 under 50 at some point, but we have hovered in this 50 to 60 range, which I think is really encouraging news for our town. And we see people coming and moving to this town because of what the school can offer for their children. You'll see 26, 27 is there kind of estimated where we don't know what those pre-K numbers will look like for the year following. So that just kind of gives us a picture of what enrollment looks like here at Georgetown School. Okay, next we're going to talk about 7 to 12 enrollment. So for 7 to 12, this current year we have 57 students. We've got 7th and 8th graders there, and then 9th to 12th graders, and then so that's for 24-25. Next year for 25-26, we'll be at 45. That's, I believe we have a large senior class that we're graduating this year, and then the following year will be at 42 for tuition students, and then you'll see the tuition costs that are down below. So for this current year, there are 56 students plus 2 reserves. So what we basically do is we consider 2 students moving into town at the RSU 1 rate, and we add 2 extra students into the budget because there is a lot of movement. And again, these numbers are a breakdown of what we know right now. We see these numbers change throughout the year as people move into town, move out of town. So we put 2 extra students in each year, just in case of people moving into town. And then for next year, 45 students with 2 reserve students. This year, one of the reasons that it looks like that number should go down more than it does with the number of students that with 12 less students. One of the things that we did this year, we put in, well, first of all, we went through and looked at exactly what the tuition is for each individual student and where they're going to be. And we also anticipated, we know what tuition is this year. We anticipated that going up 5% for next year, and we budgeted for them, which again, that's normal, is about what it goes up 5%. So we did include that in our budget for the next year. Okay, and then if you look at the next slide is tuition costs and students and costs. So one of the things I want to mention, tuition is not something that we determine in the town. Tuition is determined by the state, and it's not the same for every school. It's based on what the school's costs are. Private schools are treated a little differently than public schools are. So you can see up there the students that we have there. So for 7th and 8th grade, we've got students at Woolwich Central School and at Bath Middle School. There'll be 9 students there. And then for 9th to 12th grade, there's students at Bath Tech and at Morse High School. And that has 32 students at the high school level. And you see that that cost is actually a little lower than the middle school cost is. And then we also have some students who are in private school, and again, the state determines their tuition costs as well. So there's some students at North Yarmouth Academy, at Wayne Fleet, at Maine Coastal Waldorf, thank you, and Lincoln Academy. One of the things that private schools also do, UC says insured value for students, and insured value is basically the state allows private schools to charge an additional 10% for building upkeep, things that aren't considered part of tuition, but help to upkeep their buildings. So students who are in those private schools have the tuition cost as well as the insured value. Okay, we're gonna move over to what are we? Okay, making sure I got more. Okay, so this is at Georgetown School, our teaching and support staff. And we actually do have, so this is all of Georgetown staff that is paid by the town. One of these is actually at Morse, so I will kind of get to that in just a minute. So for our staff that we have in the building, we have a teaching principal, that's Mrs. Miller here, and she also, so she is our principal, but she also works as an interventionist. An interventionist is a teacher who takes kids who are maybe not on grade level for where their work is, but we're not sure they need special ed services. So what Caitlin's job in that is to really work with those students to try to get them caught up before we identify them as needing special ed services. So that's a really, really important role. And so Caitlin has taken over that position this year, which gives her some flexibility with principal roles and still doing teaching. We have 6 regular ed teachers that are in the building. And just to give you an indication, we have 1 teacher that covers pre-K and kindergarten. We have 1 teacher in 1st grade, 1 teacher in 2nd grade, 1 teacher that is in a combined 3rd and 4th grade, 1 teacher that's in a combined 5th and 6th grade. And then we have our 6th teacher is our librarian, who also is doing some ELA teaching as well, which is English language arts. So she's teaching part of the time and in the library part of the time. For our part-time specialists, we have a teacher here for music 1.5 days a week. And so she does music classes 1 day and then half a day of band each week. For art, we have a teacher who's here 2 days a week. PE, Mr. McDaniel is here 1 day a week. We have a nurse who's here 2 days a week and a guidance counselor 2 days a week. And then for our final support staff, we have a social worker who's here 1 day a week, a secretary 1 day a week. All day. Oh, I just said 1 day a week. Yeah, we don't want your secretary here on the wrong day. Full time. We have 1 full-time food service person, and then we have 3 custodians. 1 is here full-time during the day, and then 2 nighttime custodians that kind of split that nighttime role. Ed techs. Oh, I missed ed techs. Thank you. So for ed techs, yes, that's the other piece. Ed techs, we have 1 regular ed tech. That is in the pre-K classroom that helps support that pre-K classroom. And then we have 3 special ed techs. 2 of those are here at George, and then 1 of those supports a student at Morse. So they're still considered an employee of Georgetown School working at Morse. Did I get them all that time? Okay. We're gonna look next at our expenditures overall. So this is our budget. So you can see what the budgets look like for the last, for this coming year and then the last 3 years. 3 of those 4 years, there were pretty minimal changes. And then 1 year that it was up pretty significantly. You can see that there. Okay. So the other part of school budgets that we don't think about as often is revenues. So revenue is what comes into us that offsets. So basically we take our expenditures, this is what our budget is, and we take off the revenue that comes in. So the only revenue that we have is state subsidies. That's what we receive. And you can see that fluctuates over the years. what we take off for our states, that what it's reduced for our state subsidy, that amount is determined, that is 55% of the spot cost of special education from 2 years prior. So that is how that is determined, and that is the only revenue that we receive from the state. When you look at a district like RSU1, who's looking at much bigger, you're looking at a much bigger budget, much bigger numbers, but they're also close to 50% of their budget is offset by revenue from the state. That is because Georgetown is considered a minimum receiver, as are all schools in AOS 98, so that would be Georgetown, Edgecombe, Booth Bay Harbor, and Southport are all considered minimum receivers. And basically what that means is the state has determined that we have a tax base sufficient to pay for education ourselves, that we don't need support from the state to cover educational costs. So that shows what we are getting in state subsidy for next year and what we've gotten over the past several years. And then that bottom line is the total assessment that goes to the town. So our budget is one thing, then we've got the subsidy that comes in, and then that bottom number is the assessment. So sometimes those look quite a bit different and sometimes not so much. Last year, for example, our budget was only up. Our budget was only up 0.9% last year, but because of the decrease in our revenue, our assessment to the town was up 5%. So some people say, well, your budget's up 5%. The budget was not. Our budget was less than 1%, but we didn't have as much revenue coming in. So that is something to kind of keep in mind as we look at that. Okay, on the next page is the recommended expenditures by cost center. The state determines how cost centers in education are laid out, and every budget of every school is laid out this way. And this is exactly how you see the warrant articles are presented at town meeting. So there'll be a warrant article regarding regular instruction, and you can see the things that are included in there in regular instruction. I'm not going to read through all of this. Just a few things I wanted to mention as they're kind of larger changes. So the biggest one, the special education costs are up. I don't think that's surprising to anyone. And if someone has more questions about that, we'll catch that at the end and do some questions on that. The system admin line is up 17%. So that is a significant portion of that is for the AOS budget. So the AOS budget is a budget that oversees all the schools. So that includes the superintendent's office and all the things that support the superintendent's office. One of the changes, and so the three of us from Georgetown sit on that board. Your two board members from Georgetown sit on that board, as do the board members from Booth Bay, Edgecombe, Southport, Booth Bay Harbor, and did I get them all? Okay. So all of those, so it's really interesting because you've got a lot of people then together trying to make decisions for that big AOS budget. It was determined this year that the tech director, who is serving all of the schools, has been on Booth Bay's budget previous. They have paid her, and we each paid kind of a little bit to help cover the salary of that. It was determined this year that that's really not accurate, that we are all using her significantly more. And again, I'm not talking tech support so much as like, I can't get my feet to work, but tech support as in setting up networks, like high level things in the building, network security. And so it was determined this year to move her salary into the AOS budget. So that's why you'll see that go up. That actually is going to increase again next year. We'll tell you that because what we did this year is we only put 50% of her salary in the budget for this year. In reality, it should be 100% because that's, and then out of that AOS budget, let me explain that a little bit. Out of that AOS budget, it is based on the number of students that we have, what percentage of that cost that we pay. So Booth Bay Harbor pays the largest percentage of that because they have the largest percentage of kids. And that number is reevaluated every year, when when we have our enrollment numbers in October. So we moved 50% of her salary over to this year, and that was frankly really generous of Booth Bay and Booth Bay Harbor to allow our smaller schools another year to kind of catch up to that, to move that cost over in 2 chunks instead of once. And so instead of, so that cost going up, only, $18,000, if we moved it all over, it would have gone and doubled. And we knew that was going to be a problem in the smaller towns. And so Booth Bay felt like that was an important part of our smaller towns being able to get their budgets passed is an important part. So that was generous of them to kind of allow us another extra year to catch up on that. I believe it's absolutely the right thing to do, and more accurately reflects the services that we are receiving here in Georgetown. But it is a significant increase, and that is salary and benefit, as well as some other things that we did move as well, were some tech costs that were fixed, that are being used in every building. But the way it was set up before, it was being paid, by one building, and then all these checks being transferred from all the other schools. So we moved that to the AOS to try and simplify a little bit. So some of those costs came out of other areas of our budget and moved over to the AOS budget. So that's part of how we use that increase there. Let's see, the other one I wanted to mention is this, the other expenditures, that very last line is the school lunch program. So you'll see that is down 25%. That's not because anything's changed with how we're doing lunch. The way that the school lunch program is working right now, the state is reimbursing us for all meals served. That money is not enough to cover all of our expenses, to cover salaries and benefits, as well as all the food that we're spending. So we have always put something in our budget that we're always trying to balance exactly what we need. It's a little tricky because we have to pay for everything up front and then are reimbursed 2 months later from the state. So we have to be sure that we have enough money left in that account to be able to pay our bills. So we were able to determine, based on the money that is in that account at this point, that we don't need to bring a whole 20,000. We can get by with 15,000 for next year. So that's why that amount is different. It's not that there's been any changes in how the school lunch program works. Let's see. Okay, I guess I'll let you guys ask questions at the end if there's anything more that I can go into about that. I'm going to go ahead and call up Mrs. Miller, who's just going to tell us a little bit about some of the things that are happening at Georgetown School. The town supports this school, and we know that families work hard to make the money that it takes to keep the school open, to educate our middle and high school students, and it's important. And I wanted you to just hear a little about what's going on at Georgetown. And so Mrs. Miller is going to share a little bit with that and about that, and then we will take some questions.
Everyone, thank you for coming tonight. I appreciate it. And thank you to all of you on Zoom. I appreciate you as well. So as we reflect on this school year, I am really, really proud of the rich and varied experiences that our students have had so far. Beyond core academics, we have built a vibrant culture of learning that extends far beyond the classroom. From outdoor learning adventures to programs like the Telling Room, Portland Stage Company's Play program, our students have had opportunities to explore, create, and connect with one another. We have fostered a sense of community here at GCS with events like our Fall Festival, Spirit Week, and the upcoming June Jam with the Georgetown Recreation. These experiences support the whole child, socially, emotionally, and academically, and are a true testament to the dedication of our staff and the strength of our community partnerships. Our commitment to student engagement continues after the bell rings. So this year we have offered a wide range of after-school clubs and enrichment opportunities, many of which were driven by staff talents and student interests. Big shout out to Guide, who has helped to fund all of these amazing enrichment programs. From archery with Mr. Nathaniel to the ukulele club, sewing club, the City Science Club, these programs give students a chance to try new things, to deepen their passions, and to build confidence in a supportive and low-pressure environment. Thank you so much to all of the staff and all of the volunteers that we've had in our building this year who make these opportunities possible. Your creativity and time has truly enriched our school culture. And I just want to close by saying thank you all to our families, our staff, our town officials, and community members for your ongoing support of Georgetown Central School. This budget reflects our values, high quality instruction, thoughtful resource allocation, and a continued investment in the well-being and growth of every single student. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any further questions, or you can visit our website to learn more. Together, we are building something truly special for our children. Thank you so, so much. All I have. I do just want to share briefly, this was Mrs. Miller's first year with us. We've had a wonderful first year with her here. We look forward to many more. So if anyone, I think we're going to start with people in the room, with questions from people in the room. And Tyler would like you to come up here and ask questions into the microphone so that the people on there can hear them. Everybody now asking questions. Anybody in the room have questions? We nailed it, huh? Okay, Tyler, over there was kind of moderating the chat. Tyler, you wanna?
I am seeing a question from Judy Teller asking, what is the total budget for 25-26?
The total budget for 25-26 is $2.775 million, $86. So $2,775,086. That is up 0.8% from.
What was I believe that number is the 2622939 number? No,
Oh, so that's the expenditures. That's the assessment, the increase in the assessment. So that is, so the budget is $2,775,000, and then our revenue is $152,000. And so then the total assessment, so that means that's what the 2.622 is what the town actually has to be raised from taxes. So that's not what we budget, because we also budget the expenditures for that other $152,000. So the assessment that needs to be raised from the town is the $2,622,000.
and I am seeing Judy says, thank you. And Marcia Dunn says, thank you, Elaine and the school board for preparing all of this information. And Judy comes back and asks, what is the cost per each child in just Georgetown Central School?
That is nearly impossible for us to know, because that's not how our budgets are laid out. We don't budget for just Georgetown School and for our 7 to 12 students separately. So that is all mixed in there. So it's not really something that I can give you a quick answer to.
She would like to know if there is someone that can come up with the number. And I see that there is another question from Bronwyn Tudor saying, I can hear Elaine, but could not understand what she said about the administration's 17% increase or the school lunch program decrease. Could she speak about that a little bit more into the mic so that those that are communicating with those on Zoom? Having to read these at an angle, folks, my apologies. The cords are tight.
So as far as being able to go through and determine cost per student, Bob Tribona and I sat down and did this several years ago, went through and tried to determine that. It's difficult to do. He and I spent several hours going through it. So, you know, if that is ever something someone wants to spend several hours doing, we could probably get to a little closer number. The easy thing for this year is to not look at so much at separate, but to look at this next year we have 101 students that we're serving in Georgetown, which makes it pretty easy to figure out what your numbers are per student based on the budget. So you divide it by 100, you've got roughly your amount per student in the town of Georgetown. So other question, just going briefly over, okay, so, just a brief summary, of what I mentioned before, the school lunch program, was decreased to $5,000 that we need to raise in funds this year, just because we don't believe we need as much cash to keep that program, running the way that it has. There are no changes to the program. We just are able to take a little less, what we need from the town in order for that program to run. It is being, all meals are being reimbursed by the state. And then, the AOS 98 assessment, just briefly, that is up significantly. Part of that is a restructuring of some positions and moving the tech position, into the AOS budget to more, accurately, parse out what is actually being done by that tech director, where it used to be budgeted by Booth Bay and we all made payments to Booth Bay. This way, it's broken down by the number of students. Each school pays whatever portion of the number of students that they have of that salary. And it's in the AOS budget. So that's the reason for the change for that.
Tyler, I have a question. Elaine, just following up on the question about the per student cost. If we go to the 101, like you suggested, doesn't that still, I'm doing the math here, and when I look at what we're paying for, let's just use the private school students, the 4 or so students, when we add the additional 10%, today, those students are $16,274.30. Okay, so then we've got whatever amount of students for the next year, when we have 101, there might be 2 in private school, there might be 9 in private school. So that would be more, I mean, I think, is that part of the?
Yeah, that's part of the, so, what we're talking about is looking at determining that 7 to 12 cost. And can we just look at tuition and say that's what it costs for 7 to 12? That's not what it costs for 7 to 12. That tuition is not taking into account transportation, special ed costs, administration, AOS administration, that would have to exist regardless of anything. There would still be an administrative cost there. So parsing out exactly what one costs at each place is not easily done. I will share briefly that if you look at the RSU1 budget for this year, oh goodness, I should have written this down. It says on their budget page what their per pupil cost is, but at part of their per pupil cost, they are not counting any debt payments that are being made. And that's part of, I understand the reasoning. That's actually how the state tells you to determine your per pupil cost, is you don't count debt, because that student who's paying for it today, it's going to benefit many students for many years beyond that one student sitting in the building. Once the building's paid off, many students are still going to benefit from it. That being said, those funds still have to be raised to make those payments. And if you look at our per pupil cost in Georgetown and the per pupil cost in RSU1, they are almost identical. We're all at about right around 27 to 20,000 per student.
And I would just note, Elaine, that we did receive a comment from Jen Dobransky, school committee member, noting that we do not calculate the cost of Georgetown Central per Georgetown Central school student, because the responsibility is to all school-age children in Georgetown, pre-K through 12. And Judy Teller is thanking Jen for that input.
Yes, and if it were easy, it's not like that. It's a very complicated process trying to figure out, what goes with which, because, we have a bill for transportation, and that doesn't differentiate between high school students and elementary school students. It's a bill for the total. So it is very difficult to determine, but, based on, if we look at what RSU1's budget, the difference with RSU1 is almost half of their money, half of their budget is being returned to them as subsidy from the state. So they're not raising that entire budget, they're raising half of it from the state. Any other questions on that?
I have not seen any on Zoom, but I see one with Aria.
Yeah,
Aria.
I just would like to say, this is not a question, it's a compliment. We have so benefited from your historical knowledge and the time that you put in year after year. I mean, I've been sitting in these meetings and each year I learn something new, so I really appreciate your ability to break it down to a granular level. I'm sure others do too, but I really do appreciate that. Thank you, Elaine.
Thank you, I appreciate that, Ariana. I just want to say one thing, I do this for the money. No. Like my $250 a year stipend. I do this because this matters in this town. My children have benefited, and I want all the children in this town to benefit from having an amazing education at Georgetown School. And we see this as our students move on from Georgetown to other places that I do this because it matters and it's important.
Can I ask you a question? Right.
Yeah, if you come up, they're gonna throw on this.
And we've got, we need the computer to pick up the audio
You can talk to the computer.
or wherever.
Oh, God. There, it's perfect.
Okay, so my question is, and you'll have to correct me on the terminology, but Georgetown, did not receive the 50% subsidy from the state because it's determined that the taxpayers can pay for the school, correct?
No,
Or no?
you're close.
Okay, my question around that is, can you explain why we're determined differently from RSC one and Georgetown's differently, and any more information on that?
Evaluation.
Tyler, is that, the question is, so I just want to correct one thing. We do get 55% of special, that is all. Where, different districts, with different income levels and different property values, are taxed differently based on property values, and they often get, are receiving a subsidy for students in the state per day. And so that is something that we do not receive in Georgetown. Tyler, I'm wondering, do you have any information about that?
I was just going to share that valuation piece with Georgetown having very high valuations. That is one of the pieces along with student enrollment, cost, free and reduced. There's a whole formula involved, but valuations are one of the biggest determining factors.
So a generalization, because we have so much prime waterfront property in this island.
With high values
With
in
high
our properties.
values, it changes, it makes it so we need to pay for more out of our taxes.
Correct, where, where other districts.
And And before you leave, could you state who you were for the folks on Zoom?
Oh, my name is Mandy Winnie.
Thank you. We got lots of folks asking.
Thank you.
And we have one other question from Judy Teller asking, is there transportation for all students in Georgetown?
That's a fabulous question. So the way transportation works, for our pre-K to 6 students, there is transportation available for everyone who lives in town. For our 7 to 12 students, we provide transportation to Bath Middle School and to Morse High School. Parents in Georgetown have choice to go elsewhere. Should they choose for their child to go elsewhere, we do not provide transportation. Unless there's cases where the special ed costs that they're somewhere because we can't offer programming here in Georgetown, or we can't offer the programming that they need at Morse or BMS. And so in those cases, we do provide transportation to other schools. But so for example, my children all go to Woolwich Central School. They come with me every day to Woolwich Central School. They do not get transported. So we don't transport both to Woolwich and or to Brunswick or to, it's only to those schools, because we're providing transportation and an opportunity for them to go, students to go to the closest public school.
I am seeing, thank you for the answer, Elaine, from Judy, so I believe so.
Again, thank you all for being here. Feel free to reach out to me by email. You can feel free to reach out to Caitlin. You can reach out to our superintendent, Mr. Taylor, if there are any questions that we can answer. And feel free to grab me afterward if there's something that you want to chat about. I believe our little school is the heart of this town. I appreciate so much the support that we've gotten, and we see that with the volunteers that we have come in to support those after school activities. A lot of you have been here for, to lead a sewing club or something. It just is amazing. We love the way that the community has supported our school, and this matters to our community. And I'm proud of what we've created, all of us, and what we've made here in Georgetown. So thank you all for being here.